Good afternoon, everyone. It's 3:45, Tuesday, November the 11th. And as you can see, I'm deer hunting today in my stand, and the temperature is 44 degrees. The real field temperature is 38. So it's a little bit chilly. The wind's been blowing 10, 15 miles an hour. And it's coming out of the west, which is kind of borderline for this stand. I need a southwest wind, but it's supposed to be switching. And then about an hour before dark, according to the forecast, the wind's supposed to die down. So generally speaking, deer don't like moving a whole lot when it's really, really windy. But it is the middle of the rut, so it may throw all of that out the window. So I don't know, but I had this idea to do a deer stand devotional, so deer hunters can listen to it when they're in their stands hunting. And so that's what this video is. So I got to thinking about the story about Naaman, and man, there's so much that we could talk about in that story. And for those of you who may not be familiar with that story, Naaman was a captain in the Syrian army, and he was a great man. The Bible says he was a great man. And Naaman come down with leprosy. And obviously back in those days, leprosy was fatal. On top of that, he was outcast from society and basically put in what we would call today a nursing home. But back then they would separate and put all the lepers in a commune, basically, because nobody wanted to be around that disease. And Naaman's wife had a little servant girl who was a Jew, and she cared much for her master, Naaman's wife. And so she seen the discouragement, the disappointment in Naaman's wife. So she tells Naaman's wife that there's a man of God named Elijah, and if Naaman would go see the man of God, God would tell Naaman what to do, and God would heal him. And so Naaman does just that. He goes, and at first Naaman is very skeptical. In fact, he gets angry because the prophet, the man of God, told Naaman to go dip in the river 7 times. And Naaman, being a very proud man, leader of his military, big ego, I'm sure, Naaman takes offense to that. And then the man of God kind of schools him on, you want to be healed. If I ask you to do this or this, you would go do it. And so Naaman humbles himself and goes and does exactly what God told Elijah to tell him to do. And he goes and dips in the river 7 times. And God heals Naaman. So there's many things we could learn from that story. But there's one in particular, or actually a couple, that I want to bring to your attention. The Bible says that Naaman was a great servant to his master. Now I remind you, Naaman was a captain of hosts in the Syrian army, but he still had somebody he had to answer to. Now obviously we don't condone or agree with slavery in today's time, but even the servant girl answered to Naaman's wife. But even Naaman, who was a captain of hosts, had somebody to answer to. And to put that in today's language, we all have somebody we have to answer to. But ultimately, answer to God, every single one of us. And so, what kind of testimony do we have with the people that we have to answer to? Do we have good attitudes? Are we obedient? Do we, in a sense, serve our boss or bosses, if the case may be? What kind of testimony do we have? The Bible says, God said of Naaman that he was a great man to his master. And we all ought to have that testimony. That's lesson number one. But lesson number two, and this is what it really interests me, nowhere in all of the Bible do we find the name of that little servant girl. All we know is that she was a young lady who was a servant to Naaman's wife. Now, let me put that in perspective. The Syrians had taken captive a lot of the children of Israel. So this girl and her family had been taken captive by Naaman and the Syrian army. And so she was a servant to them, but yet she still loved her enemy. She still had compassion on Naaman. She would probably see Naaman's wife grieving over her husband, and that touched her heart. And even though the situation was like it was, she knew that if she could get him to the man of God, that he would be healed. She knew she couldn't do it, but if she could just get him to the right person. And to me, the most fascinating part is we have no idea what her name is. All we have is one little brief mention of her in all of the Bible, and one act that she did in her life that gave us this great Bible story. It all started with a little girl, and we don't even know her name. So what's the lesson in that? The lesson is, me and you face situations in our life every single day, every day. And it behooves us to do the right thing, to love people, to love our enemies, to be compassionate, to have a good spirit, a good attitude. And nobody may ever know those little things that we do. Nobody may ever see or hear of those little things that we do. But I'm glad that we serve a God who keeps up with everything that we do. And nobody may ever know on this side of heaven those little sacrifices that we make, those little acts of kindness, those acts of love and compassion that we have on people. And we may not get any attention or accolades or favor because of what we do in this life, but I can promise you, God knows every single thing that we do. And ladies and gentlemen, one of these days, I guarantee you, one of these days, God is going to reward us for all those little things that nobody sees, nobody may hear about. And I promise you, one day it will be worth it all. So don't give up, don't quit, don't get upset if you don't get attention. Just keep on loving people, loving God, having a good testimony. And I promise you, it will be worth it all in the end. And we know that. We know that because we have many, many stories like this in the Bible where we don't know the name of the person, and all we see is one little thing that they did, and yet God thought it important enough to put it in the Bible. Man, we serve a good God. He's so good. And I leave that with you today as deer season 2025, 2026, the first deer stand devotional. God bless you, your family. Have a good day. Have a good hunt. And God bless you.